During this series, we sit down with influential professionals in the entertainment and hospitality industries that are located across the world. Our goal is to learn about each professional's career and gain wisdom from their experience in the industry.
Today's guest is Kevin Rohani. Kevin is a 10-year CSUF and EHM alumnus. He has years of experience in hospitality with companies such as SBE Lifestyle Hospitality, Dream Hotel Group, and Gensler.
Kevin specializes in many areas of hospitality, such as hotel and business development, investor relations, hotel operations, project management, property renovation, and so much more.
He has also served as an active member of CSUF Center for Entertainment and Hospitality Management Advisory Board for the past 3 years.
Join us as we welcome Kevin Rohani to Industry Insider.
All right, welcome, welcome, Kevin Rohani to Industry Center. Feel like a star, right? You're like a star.
Jordan. I felt like Jordan getting ready to go into the United Center, like, and now the Chicago Bulls.
Exactly. So we have Kevin Rohani with us today. Welcome, everyone. Feel free to leave comments and chats in the section there. And we have my co-host today is Isla Goshen. So hello, Isla. How are you doing?
Hello. Good. How are you guys?
We're doing well. So Kevin,
living
the dream. 10 years ago, approximately, you graduated from Cal State Fullerton. I'm curious to know, what is your favorite memory of your time at Cal State Fullerton?
Oh, wow. So 10, you know what? Actually, May marks my 10-year anniversary. It was exactly 10 years ago, right about now, I think next week, that I graduated from Cal State Fullerton. I think my favorite memory of it was 2 years into school, finding out that some big alumnus had donated like $100 million to the campus, and we were going to get this big, new, beautiful business center. I remember, the campus was a little bit older, and 10, 15 years ago, it started getting a lot of money, and seeing the construction of this beautiful Mahalo business building, I obviously ended up being in the world of real estate development. And so being able to see it kind of real time and how you can take something from the old and bring it to the new was something that was really eye-opening for me.
What was your first job that you had when you graduated?
When I graduated, I actually got hired the day after I graduated by my current employer, SBE. And we can talk about that later. I've gone to a few places in between. But yeah, essentially a year before I graduated, I met the now chairman and president of SBE. And he had mentioned that if I had gotten my degree in hospitality, he would hire me the day I graduated. He kind of just liked me, but he knew that if I had a little bit of my technical abilities, he could kind of help train me and form me into a real sort of force to be reckoned with in the industry. So I was actually set to walk and stayed an extra year and got my concentration in entertainment and hospitality management. I was a marketing concentration beforehand and was set to walk, decided to stay an extra year, and I did it. And he kept his word. It was kind of blind faith. This guy that I met once said, if you get this degree in a year, I'll hire you. So I did it, and he did. It was weird how it all worked out. Yeah. And, I found myself filing cabinets and cleaning spider webs in the basement for the first few weeks before things really started to take off, and ultimately launched the beginning of a hopefully fruitful career.
Yes, well, it's already been fruitful. We'll let you be humble, but we'll sing your praises. Isla, I'm going to turn over to Isla. First, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then ask Kevin your first question.
I'm Isla, as you know. I'm a graduating senior this semester. In like 2 weeks, I'll be done, and concentrating in entertainment and hospitality management and minoring in music. Yeah, I don't know what to mention. Then I have is how different is your job today from what you thought you would be doing when you first were in college or graduating?
When I was in school, I had no idea this career existed. There's a lot of exposure you gain once you start getting into business that you realize the different layers into the things that you can really do with your life. I thought hospitality, when I had started, was being a front desk agent at a hotel and then making it up to manager, and then maybe one day being a general manager. And that's when I started seeing SBE. They were really a trailblazer and very sort of industry forward. They focused on nightlife and food and beverage first, creating a center of energy and then building rooms above it. So from that standpoint, there was a lot of energy around this company. And I made the active decision when I was graduating college to chase a company I wanted to work for, not a role, and find my way into that corporate culture and see if I can maneuver within it. So, I guess I didn't even know my job now existed when I was in college, and that's one of the things that I've really loved being a part of the the center and speaking with the students is, I'm traveling, I'm meeting influential people, I'm working on design and understanding lending and finance and like city communities and government officials and building amazing hotels and having parties. And, there's so many layers into what it takes to create a truly special hospitality experience. And I guess that, the main difference is knowing how many layers go from start to finish. When I started, I thought things just kind of happen. And now I realize the years of work, blood, sweat, and tears, and blind faith it takes from visionaries to really push a point of view in the industry and move the needle.
Nice.
Cool.
What do you think, if you think back to your education at Cal State Fullerton, what were some of the most valuable classes you took that you use even today and skills that you learned while at school?
I was in a marketing class once. I often joke with people that this is the thing I remember the most. And I remember in my marketing class, the professor said that there was a study that shows that there's an exact translation between how much money you earn in your life and your height. So I made sure to walk tall wherever I went. But, I was in a different scenario than I think a lot of the students are now. The program was in its infancy when I had started. So I was seeing how professors and how the education system was trying to create a center to benefit the students, as opposed to walking into an already established program of 50 years or 100 years. So from that standpoint, I felt like part of a family because I was there at the ground level. The university, outside of the fact that I was paying for my tuition cash each semester and graduated with no student debt because it does not cost $100,000 a year like USC does, that sort of thing really helped me take off. It reduces the ramp up period of your career when you don't owe money versus you do owe money. So from that standpoint, I really loved, the ability to enter the workforce without a lot of weight on my shoulders, as well as being involved at the ground level with the university that at the time was getting a lot of money put in from alumnus, and I hope to be one of those one day.
Well, we're happy to have you on our advisory board, so we appreciate your commitment. What do you think graduating seniors can do now while we're kind of in quarantine and shelter in place to really continue to make themselves stand out for when everything opens back up again?
It's interesting. I've had a lot of time to think about this and time to reflect. I think when all is said and done, obviously the negative impacts of COVID are brutal. Our company furloughed 7,000 people, and we're a small 25 hotel, 200 restaurant company. There's the Marriotts of the world that have lost hundreds of thousands, right? So from that standpoint, just being resilient and knowing that at some point the cycle is going to turn and you're going to be able to get back into the workforce. I think it's been amazing to see the class of citizen that we're dealing with in the world today. I would tell seniors something that I actually didn't just learn until maybe a year and a half ago, and that is make uncertainty your best friend. Do not walk away from it. Do not hide from it. Love it. Live with it. Because the truth is right now you're in a scenario where totally different than me. I graduated 10 years ago. Economy was on its, recession had happened and the uptick was happening. I entered the workforce end of 2010. So 2011, things are starting to pick back up, right? And from that standpoint, there was growth, there was money in the market, and there was a lot of competition with regards to hiring. The employers knew what they wanted. They knew their growth strategies. Right now, all of the labor force has been displaced. So the entire world is kind of in a shuffle of where does labor go. So from that standpoint, if I was a senior, I would look at this as an opportunity and say, I'm actually benefiting from this because just as much as I don't know what's going on, the other side for the first time ever also doesn't know what's going on.
Right.
So it's a level playing field. They don't know how to react. They don't know what to do. They don't know when it's going to end, when a vaccine is going to happen. So that same level of uncertainty exists with you as it would your employer. And I think people that are comfortable in uncertain environments will separate themselves and show better than the rest. People that kind of kick it up a notch when things get a little crazy. People that slow down when things speed up. So from that standpoint, I really would spend as much time as I could reflecting on what I really want to do and come up with a point of view and just keep pushing.
Yeah, great feedback. So we have a comment here from Myra. She says, "Hi, Kevin. Thanks so much for being with us today." Now, Myra's a little bit of a shorter young lady. She says, "I guess I'm in trouble." She says, "I guess I'm in trouble with how much money I make correlated to my height." So I told her I disagree.
Well, I'm twice Warren Buffett's size, and he's got more than I'll ever have. So, you'll be all right.
Yes. Okay, so next we have a question from Dr. Ellen Kim. She says, when students think about a career in the hotel industry, they don't automatically think of development-related jobs. They normally think of front desk, operation-related jobs, etc. How did you start on this career path in hotel development, and what are some possible paths students can take to be like you?
Yeah, no, great question, because hotel development is my love and passion. To be honest, when I started at my company, I was kind of just launching and just getting into the hotel space. So our hotel team was 4 people and everybody worked on everything. So I got incredible exposure. I was very lucky right off the bat to see real time while my company was trying to learn what the process is. Hotel development to me is just an absolutely incredible field, and you have to be very comfortable being considered as kind of a back of house operator, right? You're doing all of the things necessary to get this idea to the point that it can be an operating business with employees and be bringing in guests and revenue. Once the hotel is built, that's when you hand the keys to your operations team, and they're now running it day to day. And as a development person, you're now away from this project, focusing on your clients, making sure that they're, being taken care of, but also looking at other new opportunities for your company to grow. So essentially on the development side, you're doing everything from when it's the idea until when the door opens. And that, for me, what I really wanted for myself when I was, growing up and entering the workforce was to be able to at least see the change in the urban fabric of the communities I live. And this is the easiest way to touch, feel, see, smell that is if you're involved at the ground level of development. There is no real true path. I've seen, I have 20 people that have my same title at competing firms that all got to there through different ways. There was no one direction. There was no go to school, get this job, then get this job. It's kind of like if you can go there and understand what happens behind the scenes and be articulate and analyze how to help a project progress before the world is using it, you'll find a great path in development.
And I ask one question, then turn it back over to Isla for another question. When you think about the many development projects you've worked on, which one is maybe the most memorable or are you most proud of? I know we love them all, like we love all our children, but still, like, which one really kind of brings back a lot of memories?
Oh, wow. So, the Redberry Hotel in Hollywood.
Okay.
It actually doesn't exist anymore. It's now called the H Club because it was sold at like a 100% profit. And one of the Paul Allen, the former late co-founder of Microsoft, had started a development company. He bought it from us. The Redberry was an incredible project because I got hired at SBE October of 2010, and this hotel opened, like a month after. And this was a building that one company had bought and built and went bankrupt at like 90% construction. And my chairman found it, got it, came up with a vision, redesigned it, put in a team, hired staff, came up with a vision, all in like 90 days. I'd never seen somebody take a square box from somebody else's vision and turn it into their DNA faster and better. And it was the most amazing hotel I've ever been a part of. I also, in my first stint at SBE, spent a few months doing a training program there where I worked, like 3 weeks at front desk and 3 weeks in engineering and 3 weeks in sales. And I was very fortunate to be able to get that sort of exposure, which I think is, you'd have to be part of a kind of a larger program, training program to be able to do that. For me, it was more of like a one-on-one. My chairman emailed the hotel and said, guys, let's do a 6-week training program for Kevin before he goes to Vegas to help launch SLS Las Vegas. So from that standpoint, I think my first hotel, and what's funny? On the side of the hotel, it's on Hollywood and Vine, and it was this beautiful red 5-story building, unbelievable stature, and ingrained in the top floor of this, on the 5th floor on the roof, were the words "Home is where the heart is," and I always remembered that, and I still do, and I think that to me means, in your work, in our world of hospitality, bring a little bit of home into it, bring a little bit of emotion, soul into it. It is a numbers game. You obviously want to do the best for your investors and build, obviously make as much money for your team and your company and your ownership as much as possible. But you got to have to do it being you, right? And find a way to make it you. So that kind of always really stuck with me from that standpoint.
Okay, Isla, I'll turn over to you for our next question.
Yeah. So, what is the most rewarding part of your job, and what's the most challenging?
Oof. The most rewarding part of my job I've ever had by far was, I mean, outside of being invited to be on the advisory board for this university, which has absolutely been just a dream come true for me. Again, because I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was at that age, and now that I've kind of figured it out, why not try to be a helping hand? Try not to be a bridge, help people cross this bridge. And for me, I think, one of the things that I learned from the most in this business was really the ability to sort of pivot, right? The ability to look at something and know that in 5 minutes or in 5 months, it can go an entire different direction. And when that happens, are you going to be stuck in your feet with cement feet and not being able to move? Or are you able to turn and go? Because rule number one in hospitality is really anticipate needs, don't react to them. Right now, that's a little tough to explain because a scenario is happening in the world where everybody's really has to and is forced to react. But in a normal world, it's really the ability to sort of be able to pivot. And I learned that from every company I've worked at. It's been an amazing ride.
Now, speaking about pivoting, like that's going to be really important for people who are entering the workforce now to do. They might have had an idea that I'm going to go work in a hotel, either the front desk, or I'm going to go work in entertainment and music. That's kind of different. That might not be the case now. What advice would you have to people who maybe want to learn how to best pivot better?
Well, I will say this. First, it has to do with being confident enough to kind of remain calm and think about what's going on rather than having to force your hand. I deal with negotiating. That's what my life has come down to is really building something special and then negotiating the terms of what that specialty costs. So from that standpoint, you never want to be forced to do something, right? So when you're able to pivot and you're able to, the idea is to be able to see it before it happens. So you go with the wave. Now that you're in a scenario where everybody's kind of in the same unknowns, I mean, I would just focus on things that make you stronger and building habits. I believe in something a little unrelated, but also I think related to everything is the 40% rule. I might have talked to you about with you, Amani, about this. The 40% rule is really is that governor chip in your mind. And for those of you that don't know what a governor chip is, it's basically a limit in a car. A car will say it can go 160 miles an hour. But once you hit 120, it goes, it stops. It can't go past it because there is a law governor chip in there that limits it. Our mind has the same chip. That's probably what I've learned the most in my 10 years since college is as soon as you figure out your mind, you're unstoppable. I haven't yet, but I'm learning every day how to use it as a tool rather than it's something that's holding me back. The 40% rule, it happens to everybody. Once you're pushing and you're pushing and you're pushing and something tells you it's time to stop, you're comfortable, go sit down, have a pizza, grab a beer, go watch the game. Then that's honestly the difference between good and great. And I think good is the evil of great. And there's books about this that are phenomenal. I think really, if you find it in yourself to push past that 40%, you'll be in a world of very few people that are able to do very amazing things with their life. I'll give you a very quick example. December of 2018, January of 2019, I made a conscious effort to be more healthy and start exercising a lot more. I started exercising, and every day I would go on the bike for 10 minutes after my weight lift, okay? And every single day for a month and a half in my head, I would say, Kev, go 12 minutes, go 12 minutes, go 12 minutes for a month every day. And at 9 minutes and 59 seconds, every single time I would shut it off. And it would bother me about myself. And one day I'm in Dallas watching Seattle versus the Cowboys for the playoffs in 2019, so like a year and a half ago.
Right.
And I'm going to the gym before I go to the game. And my friend that's there with me goes, hey, man, this time, why don't you do 15 minutes on the bike? Because I'd been expressing my concerns. And I said, you know what? Screw you. I'm going to do 20 minutes. Let me tell you what happened. I went from doing 10 minutes every day to that day, somehow the block twisted. I went 30 minutes. I don't know how. The day after going 30 minutes, I did an hour. The day after that, I did 90 minutes. And then I did 90 minutes every day for a year. Ooh. So let me ask you something. In that 3-day period, when I went from 10 minutes to 30 minutes to 60 minutes, did my body change? Not at all. Did I gain more muscle? Not at all. Did I have more muscle memory as a result? Not at all. The only thing that changed was this. And as soon as you realize this is your best friend as well as your worst enemy, and how to make it your best friend when you know it's your worst enemy, life will be good. And that's kind of one of the little lessons I've learned, is always put your mind at the test. Never take it at face value, because it's here to trick you. It's here to make you grow. It's here to make you better.
All right. Very wise. Very wise.
Yeah.
You mentioned a couple times already just how you've met people and you work with them and you see them again. Talk to us about how important networking has been to your career.
Well, okay. I'm going to say something else before that to hopefully help sort of with people that are listening in. You know, you're in an uncertain time, and everybody wants to just talk about good news and good news and good news. And yeah, everything is going to be okay. I'm going to be vulnerable, and I'm going to be 100% honest with you guys. I, post-college, have been employed 4 times, okay? One of those 4 times I was fired. Another one of those 4 times I was told I had to resign or would be fired if I didn't resign willingly, okay? So now you're talking to me 10 years after business as an executive for a company who's going to make even bigger moves in my life. And I have had major failures across the way. And it's finding ways to turn those failures into successes. So I don't want people to feel like everything has to go your way every step of the way in order for you to make it. You got to want to get hit back. You got to want to fight. That's what's going to make you push past, right? So that's kind of, you know, how I really look at life in today's world. And that's what I'd say is make uncertainty your best friend. Start loving the idea of failure. Be comfortable with all of the things that you know other people are uncomfortable with, because they won't go where you're willing to go. And when you're willing to go there, you'll find something really special.
Cool. All right. And then commenting on the whole networking piece and how that's helped your career, kind of continue on, keep going.
So like I mentioned, I've worked at 4 companies, and at 2 of them, I had sort of abrupt departures.
Yes.
But the first one that forced me to resign is now the one that's hired me to be a senior executive at the company. Okay. So it just goes to show, I remember when I was 25, 26 and making every mistake a 25, 26-year-old could make, and thinking to myself, oh, I can't believe that this came on me at my company, and my ego was hurt, and I was upset and bothered. And I realized something, man. You don't know how long life is and how many times you'll see people and through how many avenues you'll end up doing business with them. I still do business today with everybody that I developed a relationship with 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. There is points in time where you're growing your career, and yeah, some of those people are in the back burners, they're on the side, they're not involved anymore, you're doing something different, but it somehow always finds a way to come back to you. And that's one of the things that I've really found special. Networking is the reason I am here. Networking positively and forming real bonds and relationships built on a genuine state of mind is why I will succeed from here, right? So I think it's got to be number one. And that goes back into the get out of your comfort zone. Go strike a conversation. I'm a big guy. I'm 6'6", 240. I feel like you'd have to have, some stones on you to really like look at me and be like, I'm just going to go strike a conversation with this big monster. But you got to do it. You got to meet people. You got to be hungry, want to learn. Sometimes you'll just pick a conversation with somebody and they'll talk for 20 minutes and you'll hear one word, and that one word triggered something in your head that made you go a different direction. So I'm in the people business. I want to be a person for the world. I'm not in any other sort of business. I'm not in the finance world. I'm not in the real estate world. I'm in the business of really developing lifelong bonds with people, because ultimately when you get to the point where you have to operate at a high level business, that relationship, that network is what's going to allow you to move the needle when times are tough. That's what's going to allow someone to trust you when when the world is saying it doesn't make sense to, right? And right. That's what makes life really special.
Okay. Isla, I'll shoot it over to you, and then we have a question from the audience as well.
All right. You travel a lot, right, for your job?
Well, until 3 months ago, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like okay. 6 flights a week.
So what have you encountered any like major cultural problems with the differences, or any like, I don't know, something good, really great happened, or a big conflict you had to overcome, something like that?
I deal with it every single time I travel on a business trip. I fall in love with the place I go and the people that I see there. It's weird because the best way to really understand a community, and like for my world, if I'm going to do a hotel in say Miami, Florida, and I've never been to Miami, how good is that hotel going to be? Like you got to go there and see the people and feel the people and smell the air. So traveling has been a bridge for me. It's bridged the gaps in geography in my world and the gaps in culture that I otherwise would have normally not been able to see. I was very fortunate because when I was younger, my parents would always take me on these trips to Europe, Yosemite. We'd go to these places and I'd always remember complaining, Mom, Dad, I want to stay with my friends. Quit taking me away. And my brothers would do the same thing. And now I look back and I'm so glad that I've been fortunate enough to be able to travel when I was younger. And now as a result of business being able to travel, I'll tell you this though, it takes a toll on you when you do have to travel a lot. So when you do travel a lot, you want to be very healthy. You want to be clean. You want to make sure you have a good diet. You sleep well. That's the way that you can operate in different continents and different time zones without having to take 3 days off every time you go to the East Coast, right? So, I'll tell you, you see different things. I'll never forget this. When I was at Dream Hotel Group, I went to Belize. I'd never been to Belize. It's British Commonwealth law, English speaking. They follow the U.S. currency. Basically, a Belizean dollar is 0.5 of a U.S. dollar. And I went there, and it's generally a third world country. It's just south of Chetumal and Quintana Roo of Mexico. It's the border of Mexico in the Gulf of Mexico. And I remember being very just bullish on life and creating a special environment there. And I would talk to the bartenders of the hotels I would stay at and the front desk agents. And I remember I had a question I would always ask them. If you were to come to the US, where would you want to see first? And people always had an answer. And when I asked the Belizeans, every single one of them were like, why would I go to America? I love this place. I'm not trying to go. So it took away a preconceived notion of me that was like, everybody wants to be here, and it helps you really understand different cultures have different beliefs and different values. And this business has really helped bridge that for me.
Interesting. What's the one city or country that's next on your list to kind of see maybe for the first time or explore more in depth?
So I've been all across the US. My brother lives in Paris, France. I go to Europe 6 times a year. I've never been to the Middle East. I've never been to Asia. I've never been to South America outside of Colombia. I would love to go to Hong Kong when times are good, just because I'd always heard about, just Hong Kong real estate, and it's just kind of this different world. And you look at photos of it and you're like, how is this a city? How are they even build this city?
Right.
Hong Kong, I'd love to go to. I would love to. My dad just went to Patagonia earlier this year. I would love to go to Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Peru. Like I said, I've been to Colombia twice. And it's funny because I'm Iranian and my family fled a revolution to come here. So the idea of going to the Middle East for me is like, oh, somebody else can go, but that's just me being honest. I think that I eventually will go one day and absolutely will love it. And I think North Africa, Morocco, I would love to go to. I'd love to go anywhere. There's places I haven't even heard of that I'd want to go.
Exactly. Isla, you going to say something? You were giving a shout out there?
I just said I'm Iranian too.
Yeah, there you go.
So there you go. Commonalities. Okay, so we'll ask another question that came from the audience. What are your responsibilities within the company as Senior VP of Development? What is your typical day like before the pandemic?
So it depends on how many projects I'm working on, right? So if I'm working on 10 projects on any given month, right, you have 3 projects that you're exploring with the partner and seeing if it makes sense. And then you have 3 projects that maybe now it makes sense and you're trying to fine tune your approach to the project. And then there's the top, 3 or 4, which is you're negotiating terms around that contract so that project gets built. So depending on the phase of the contract and the phase of the project will dictate what your day-to-day is like. I will say this, no 2 days have ever been the same. And in the event that like there is absolutely zero structure into my life because I've built a pipeline of networks and individuals. So I could wake up at 5 a.m. because I want to, not because I have to. I get my me time in before the world starts chasing me, because when you're in a global business, New York is emailing you, London is emailing you, they're 3 hours ahead and 8 hours ahead. You have to be kind of 24/7. The normal day-to-day, I honestly wake up every day and I think, all right, who do I want to speak with right now? Is there any reason to speak? What projects have needs? But really, it's an emotional thing. I call the owners of the projects. How's life? How are the kids? How are you doing? Anything I can help with? You got to try to be partners aside from the business so that when you do the business, it's stronger. And so I spend a lot of time, honestly, just making friends. That's what my job is finding friends that are in my world, becoming friends with them, and hopefully doing some pretty special things.
Nice. Good. Isla, what else do you have for us there?
I just want to know, how's your work-life balance with Normally,
This is
now when you're not home.
This is one thing I could probably work on better, because when you're in hospitality, that's one thing. But when you're in lifestyle hospitality, which is kind of the sector I'm in, it all meshes together. The whole thing becomes really one and the same. So a lot of the people that I consider my close friends are industry people that started out as clients. A lot of people, I was chasing an opportunity to do a hotel in Paris. I met the son of the owner. We became really good friends. We help each other in business. He sends me deals, I send him deals. But like, aside from that, we'll vacation together. His family knows my family. My girlfriend knows him and his girlfriend. So it's like, it's an amazing way to just really, I'm in a business of just building friends for people that are in the hotel world. So it's kind of fun from that standpoint.
That's cool.
I'm curious to hear, what do you think about trends in the lifestyle segment of hospitality, kind of post-pandemic? I know things are changing. What trends did you have your eye on? What do you think we should keep our eye on looking forward?
I'm not one to speculate, because I'm not an analyst. I don't sit in front of data all day to come up with my point of view. A lot of my point of view is kind of more emotional and just based on maybe what I've seen. So that being said, this is definitely going to be an interesting time. To be determined on what's going to happen in the food and beverage space, because you have some QSR, quick serve restaurant concepts that are fine, but then you have the restaurants like Tao, which was my old partner, and you have this 20,000 square foot space that has 400 seats and was so expensive to build that you need 900 people in there a day to be profitable. Packing in a venue like Sardines, that might be going away. That might be on hold for a little bit. I know that we're looking at a lot of different service standards, standard operating procedures on how to make adjustments. One of the biggest trends that I saw personally was, and this was through my chairman, was the growth of digital brands and food and beverage delivery. We were in our hotels like a year ago and started noticing that Uber Eats drivers kept walking into our hotels and going up the elevator to drop off food. And we start looking at our in-room dining numbers and realize that they've been going down, and we're a food and beverage company. So we, a year ago, raised a lot of money, built a platform called C3, Creating Culinary Communities, which is a subsidiary of SBE, which is essentially a ghost kitchen, digital brand, and food hall business. So we have created brands that are not brick and mortar. So for instance, we have a restaurant called Katsuya. It's a high-end Japanese restaurant that's been around for 17 years. We have like 20 some odd locations. They do extremely well. We've created a digital brand for Katsuya called Crispy Rice. Limited menu items, and it's only available on the delivery platforms, the Uber Eats. You can never find one on the streets. So right now we're getting into the world where brick and mortar might be shifting and digital is coming in. And the reason for that is less people, less cost, less rent. You need less space. You don't need front of house. A lot of people are ordering food and having them in their hotel rooms, in their homes. 7% of baby boomers have ordered food delivery. Now, that was before coronavirus. Imagine what every kid of a grandfather is telling their grandparents to do today. Order Uber Eats instead of going to the grocery store. So that's a massive market segment that's going to be coming in. I'm a firm believer in the digital delivery of brands in the food and beverage space is going to be huge for hospitality. I think a lot of people right now think that it's a reaction rather than an anticipation, but the truth is that's just because a lot of restaurants have shut down and they're figuring out how to make money out of them. We started doing this a year and a half ago, raised $90 million around this with partners like Accor and Simon's Property Group, which is the largest mall owner in the country. Yes. So we're doing things the right way. We're not just basically going into a kitchen and saying, okay, it's closed right now, push the on button on Uber Eats and start making money. No, we've built highly efficient kitchens. We have infrastructure, partnerships, brand partnerships, collaborations. We're doing things now with partners like, for instance, I'll show you this. Sorry. So like in an Uber Eats, you order Crispy Rice. Our company has this little flyer that shows our 3 digital brands that don't really exist. And then on the back, it shows Recovery 180, which is a partner of SBE's. Now it shows their photo, and there was a free Recover 180 bottle in the bag. So we're now finding out more ways to communicate with the guest that knows us digitally, because that's the bridge you want to gap. A lot of people are going to say, oh, well, standards are going to change. Cleanliness is going to change. How often you clean a room is going to change. How many people can stay in the same room within a given week is going to change. To be determined. Accor, our parent company, has a point of view on it. They're industry leaders in Europe from that standpoint. So once I dive in a little bit more and learn about what those changes are, I'd be able to fill you guys in. But for me, I think it's going to stay on making highly efficient models work taking the front of house away and going back of house. So instead of having 25 servers, maybe you have 3 chefs, but you have 22 digital marketers, right? So the workforce shuffle, I think, is going to change in food and beverage significantly.
Continuing on that line of thinking, like what are some jobs that students and even young professionals might not know about now that you feel are either here and are just not talked about, or are coming soon that they can maybe look to applying for in the future?
Well, you know, if you look at anything like in the development world, generally it would be like analyst, development manager, digital marketing manager, like business development coordinator, you know, things like this are roles that you would find within my field. But I'll tell you this, you do not, like I said in the very early stages, this is my advice, find a company you love and get there. Don't find a job title you love, because when I was at SBE, the president of the restaurant group was a bartender 4 years before he became the president of the restaurant group of what is now one of the biggest food and beverage companies in the United States. So like, even if you're seeing job titles that say chef or line cook or prep cook or server or busboy or valet or bellman, that does not dictate what your trajectory is. That just gets you a foot in the door. And if you're a rock star, and if you went to Cal State Fullerton, we know you're a rock star, you're going to be doing just fine. Trust me.
Yeah, exactly. I started Marriott as a bellman, and then, you know, years later, just grew to that. So I can relate. All right,
Right.
Ellen Kim, Dr. Kim, one of our fearless leaders on campus, asks us, can you tell us a little bit about SBE and how it differentiates itself from other hotel groups?
Yeah, so, SBE, what a beautiful place. It's interesting because we look at the hospitality space from the opposite point of view, as I would think 99% of our competitors do. They focus on rooms and how to make the rooms business work. And then they figure out, what do we do with the food and beverage? It's generally a loss leader. We come in the exact opposite. We want to build the best restaurant, day club, nightclub, bar, quick serve restaurant, burger joint in the city, and build rooms on top of it. We believe in creating a sense of energy and letting that energy go vertical. So from our standpoint, we look at things totally differently, which is great when people get it, but it's also sometimes tough to explain. So now imagine I'm dealing with a hotel owner that's trying to decide who's going to be his operator in his brand. And I'm competing with like a guy from Marriott and a guy from Hilton, and then you have me. They're going to understand the process with the guys at Marriott and the guys at Hilton. I'm going to show them a financial statement that shows our food and beverage numbers being 10 times higher than theirs, and they're going to try to understand, how do you even get to here? So it's a bit of a leap of faith with people understanding, like, when you're an owner and you want to hire an operator, you're hiring them because they know what they're doing, not because you know what you're doing and you're just bringing people on so you could bully and boss them around, right? So we're very selective in the owners that we decide to move forward with. That's also an important thing. I think when you're first starting in business and bringing in revenue and bringing in money and bringing in deals and sponsorships is so important. But even more important is the wrong deal is the worst thing you can ever do, right? So be very selective, do the diligence, learn about the markets, about the people you're in business with. That really helps bridge the gap from my point of view.
When you're looking at some of the best leaders you've had the chance to work with, what are some of their most common characteristics?
It's something I'm trying to figure out how to do right now. And it was something that we touched up on earlier. Like, I'll talk about my chairman, Sam Nazarian. He basically gave me my life, if you think about it. I have no idea what I would be doing if I never met that company and decided to go to an extra year at Fullerton, right? So one of the things that he does is he gets stronger when everything is crazy. He's almost better with a gun to his head than like with 12 hours to just look at a document, you know? And that sort of blink mentality, the ability to come up with decisions and stick with them, and knowing that the decision that you make from your gut that takes you 0.1 seconds to come to is about 90% of the time the same decision that comes after spending 2 hours thinking about it and just going with your gut. That's something that because I've been in my life, I've tried to be that way. And sometimes, I'll be honest with you guys, you can be seen as reckless. You're just going in a direction and just going. It's finding a targeted way to be strong when everything is weak, and not strong from the sense of posturing, but strong from the sense of having a sense of leadership. Our chairman was out delivering care packages to people 5 weeks ago. He was on Fox Business, MSNBC, NBC News doing this. And I'm just now seeing some of the other people start to do this. I have friends that are at competing companies that are like, oh, we're doing a food drive for our employees right now. I'm like, what have you been doing for 5 weeks? And that's what his special power really is get there first. I mean, he's launching the digital brand platform. He launched the hospitality lifestyle space the way it currently is. So finding a way to be vulnerable enough and be okay enough failing to do what it takes to start something new and create a new trend. That's kind of what he does. And I really love that about him.
Interesting. All right, another question from our audience. So it's from Megan Martin. Hi, Megan. It's Robert's here. But anyways, she says, hi, everyone. Within the food and beverage industry, like you stated, the virtual experience is on the rise. How does your company create a strong guest experience? How does this differentiate from a face-to-face guest experience?
It's a little different, right? Our company has the infrastructure and we already have the brand equity and the connection with people so that when we launch a sister brand to Katsuya called Crispy Rice, the people we go to know us, they have proof of concept, they've been with us for years. It's a little more difficult if you're like Amani's Burger Joints on, in Fullerton and your restaurant's shut down and now you're trying to go digital. It's very difficult. I know the companies have spent hundreds of millions of dollars figuring out how to get to a successful point. I think digital marketing is essential, finding ways to communicate with the guests. But because we do have brick and mortar, we have the ability to communicate with our guests when they're with us and then also communicate with them digitally when they're not with us. That's the goal. The goal is not to have a world of people you know and a world of people you don't know. The goal is to have a world of people you know. Sometimes you're with them and sometimes you're not. That's the different lens, right? So that's kind of how we really look at it and try to differentiate. Outside of that, it's still kind of a business that's in its infancy, which is why it's so exciting. You'll see it go in this direction, and this direction, and this direction. And ultimately, in a year or two, I think some of the big boys will really understand how to do this the right way, what the right model is. Because right now, the one problem you deal with is the delivery companies. They kill you. They take 30%. If you're a guy that owns a taco stand and you're selling $10 worth of tacos to stay alive and deliver your food, and Uber Eats is picking it up, they're collecting 30% of that revenue as well as charging the person ordering it the delivery fee.
Yes.
So if I was to do anything in my life, it would be an absolute monster of a lobbyist against the delivery business. And finding ways to make sure that they can gain profits while also everybody wins, because the only way this business works is win-win. Right now, you're at a point where you want competition. Competition is not your enemy. Right now, the delivery business is a $30 billion out of an $800 billion restaurant business. These big guys need everybody to come in. They need more market share. So from that standpoint, if you really want to do something special, you're going to have to work together and consider a win-win. Which I think is the one tough part we're dealing with right now, is the part that's out of your control. Because as soon as the food gets picked up from your restaurant, you have no idea if the guy is taking a break, calling his mom instead of going to the house, doing 3 drops. Uber Eats used to do 1 delivery. They pick it up and they come to your house. Now they'll do 3 stops. Taco Bell takes you 48 minutes to get instead of 5. So right now they're trying to maximize how much money they get. And I think they're going to be realizing in order for them to really grow, they're going to have to be a service to the people and not a burden, and hopefully that time comes.
Very interesting. An interesting kind of follow-up question is from Joanna Sosa Lazaro. Hi, Joanna. She asks, what is a dream location?
She's my mentee.
There you go. Props to Joanna.
Hi, Joanna. How are you?
What's a dream location you would like to open up a restaurant or hotel in?
Very easy. None of you have probably ever heard of it. Hopefully you look it up. It is a city called Bacalar in Mexico, in Quintana Roo. It is about 20 minutes away from Chetumal. It's a natural water lagoon. It's kind of like Tulum in a natural water lagoon. It's the most incredible place I've ever been to, and nothing's there right now. So when I first started to look at a hotel opportunity there, everybody was like, there's no business there. What are you doing? Now I have the projects and everybody's trying to get in. So kind of how Sam was kind of looking at markets, pioneering and finding ways to creatively bring different food and beverage exposure. I like to be the guy to bring that exposure to a new market, because the truth is our following, we can build it. I could build a hotel in Antarctica and create a theme around it. And we have enough of a following where, like, if you were able to get there, people would go because they want to go for our concept in that market, not that they want to go in that market, right? So from that standpoint, we have a great, real connection with our community of people and our tribe, and that's been really successful helping us grow. But yeah, Bacalar, Bacalar, is my favorite place in the world right now.
We're gonna look it up as soon as we get off this call.
It
Isla,
looks just like the photo behind you.
Oh, okay, cool.
Ooh.
I'm ready. Yes. Isla, go ahead. What do you have for us?
What is the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
I love this question.
Oh, wow.
I know it's a tough one. You just narrow it down, I guess.
I don't know if it's advice that I'm going to tell you, but I remember when my first boss, who's still very much in my life and is a mentor and is an incredible figure, a CEO in this business of an incredible company. And he looked at me in the face one day, and I was like 26 years old, and he was like, "You're really arrogant. I just want you to know that. And right now you have no reason to be." And I was like, wow, what just hit me in the face? And I took a minute to think about it, and it helped adjust my thinking, because sometimes you walk too many steps, and you're on the wrong track before somebody kind of helps check you and get you on the right path. So advice, I mean, I guess if I would have said that was advice, he would have been like, "You're dumb, switch shifts." But I just trusted and respected this guy enough to know what he meant. And if anybody at that time in my life told me I was arrogant, I would just not listen to them, right? Because I was exactly what he called me. I was arrogant. So I think just that realization of knowing you at some point in your life, you think you know more than you do, and you don't realize how large that gap is, and you try to show the world that gap is smaller, and that's when you get in trouble. And it really taught me to like understand what I'm talking about, have a point of view, have the point of view be backed up. A lot of times, if you're watching news right now, you'll see a headline and then you'll use that in a conversation. But what happens if somebody counters you?
Right.
You have nothing behind it, right? So for me, what I really learned from that moment was build a foundation. And it goes to something I told you about earlier. If you're cutting corners, if you're building something, but you're only building it to 90%, and now imagine you have to build 100 things in your life. Every time you built it to 90%, by the time you're done, it's 20% of the value of what it should have been, right? So really the advice I would give is you're only selling yourself short by cutting corners. And one thing that I thought of today to tell you guys, I heard my whole life, and I even advertised, work smart, not hard. And I hate myself for that statement. And I hate hearing that statement, because I think it's the worst thing you can do. It's not about work smart, not hard. It's about work smart and hard. If you do those, you're good. Because sometimes you can work smart, not hard, and it helps cut corners. But then 5 years later, when you needed the foundation that would have been this project, you don't have it. So that's what I would kind of, I would say, is build the foundation, understand the layers, learn the process, invest in yourself. Don't cut corners. That's really what I would say.
That's kind of the parent question, or the brother or sister question, to one of my favorite questions, which all my students know. But if you were going to give your younger self, 21-year-old Kevin, advice based on what you know now, would it be the same thing? What would it be?
Well, I'll preface it with, I didn't go to college right after high school. I started working in sales. So when I was 21, I was just thinking about now taking my 2 years at Cal State Fullerton. Whereas now I'm seeing a lot of the students at Cal State Fullerton, and I'm like, I'm 34 and they're 21, but they're like me when I was 30. I feel like this generation I'm just so proud and impressed of the level, charisma and thought and class and hard work that's going into a lot of these students. It's amazing, because what I would tell myself, if I trusted myself enough to listen, would be, whatever you think you're doing for the next 10 years, do the opposite, literally. Because I learned the hard way, you cut too many corners, Kevin. And it took from 28 to 33 to really build the foundation to have success. If I had done that from 18 to 22, who knows what I'd be doing right now, right? So
All right.
I would say, I would honestly, don't trust yourself too much, I guess is what I would say.
All right. Dr. Kim has another question here. You've attended many networking events here at Cal State Fullerton and met with numerous EHM students. Who stood out among the ones you interacted, and any advice for our students on how to really build relationships through networking opportunities?
Yeah, there's two. One is Amanda and another is Alex, and I met them both my first year being on the advisory board. And the reason they're on the list is because they're now out of school and in their careers, so hopefully you guys all make that, and do some special things, and I'd love to help. But these two kids were relentless. I came in for a presentation in Professor Tarantino's class 3 years ago. And afterwards, Dean Morteza and I were walking out of the building, and he was walking with me. We're catching up on life because he was my econ professor when I was in school 10 years ago. Now he's the dean.
Yes.
So we're walking through the campus, and this woman, Amanda, you know, had to have been 21, 22 at the time. I hear this woman like yelling my name and chasing after me while I'm with the dean, and like walks in between us to start asking me questions and saying, you know, I really like this and I really like this. And she was very eager and put herself out there at the risk of somebody being like, you know, what are you doing? That's, you know, that's rude. Get out of here. Respect the dean. And that same day she did that, because I talked to her for like 20 minutes after this. That same day I was at my friend's house who had recently launched a company who was in partnership with the largest nightclubs in Los Angeles. And he was like, I need a solid intern. And I told him, you're done. You're hiring this person. He called her. The next day, she was an intern for 3 months. She's been full-time there, you know, working at top nightclubs in Los Angeles for the last 2.5 years. Alex Infante, who is honestly one of the most incredible men I've ever been able to meet. I learned from the students, I think, more than they learned from me. Yes. I'm selfish in this scenario because this guy is all heart. And I'll tell you something, and I think I've told this to him too. When I first met him, I was kind of like, I was very busy at that time in my life, and he was kind of like, you know, he bugged me a little too much. And I'd be like, all right, buddy, I'll call you back in a month. He just wouldn't quit. He had no quit in him. And now we get lunch like every month, and we talk about life and family and his, you know, girlfriend that he wants to be his fiance. Hopefully she's not listening. But, you know, that was a few months ago. So I'm
spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
I'm banking on So I think those two, and the one trait that they both had was did not care at all if I ignored them or said no or walked away. They were absolutely relentless, which reminded me of myself, which made me, end result, give them 10 times more than I would have to somebody else. Yeah. So those are the people I think of frequently, and I can't wait for you guys to be them.
It'll happen soon. Isla, we're almost done, so I'll let you ask one of your final questions, and we'll kind of continue on.
Hold on, let me look at my thing again.
You got the whole list of them.
While you're thinking, I'll tell you this. I've been wiping my forehead like 20 times now. It is 90 degrees in here, and I don't have the AC on in my house because it's too loud. I don't want you guys to think I'm nervous. I mean, I'm a little nervous, but it's the heat.
You're fine. We've got like 3 or 4 minutes. We're almost done. Don't you worry.
I'm shiny right now.
Okay. So what are some short-term and long-term goals you have for where you are right now?
I think about this every day, so don't think I'm trying to think of ahead. I'm just thinking about how to present it to you. Short-term goals would be to prove to myself I'm capable of more than I think I am at this level. That's a short-term goal. So if there was something I thought I was not capable of doing, find a way to do it, because that little bit of motivation and momentum helps you just keep getting and getting and getting. Long-term goals, I want to be a creator of things, and I want to create jobs. My ultimate long-term goal is that when all is said and done and my time has come and it's time for me to go, that I look back in life and realize that I was able to at least touch the people that I had the fortune of being next to. That's a long-term goal. I want to be remembered as somebody that loved and cared and gave with his heart as well as his mind. You know, these questions, again, you ask my 21-year-old self, short-term goal would have been have $1 million by 30. Long-term goal would have been a billionaire by 50. And now I'm 34. I turned 35 on Wednesday, and I tell you, money is the last thing on my mind. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So I think for me, it's really about being comfortable with who I am and being proud of who I am and continuing to impress myself. I always would compare myself to others when I was in my 20s, and now I realize I'm selling myself short. I'm not even allowing myself on the basketball court to play the game if I'm comparing myself to other people. You know, it's really about comparing yourself with comparing against yourself. Yes. You are your best benchmark. Be better. Let me tell you something, Isla. What happens, like I told you about the bike story of going 10 minutes every day and then going 15 and then going 30 and then going 90. What do you think that does to your mind? For the rest of your life, that is not something you can unsee. You have now worn a lens that shows you can do what you kept saying for weeks you couldn't. and take that and put that into other aspects in your life. And it doesn't come at once. You got to play the long game here. You got to know that you're going to make mistakes and make the wrong decision your whole life. And just make sure that what you do when you make those decisions is you gain from it and you gain value. I'm a firm believer in momentum through failure. And that's something that I really, really want to continue doing more of.
What caused your shift in terms of your outlook on money, like the shift from wanting to be a billionaire to now caring more about working with people?
Well, it's weird. I guess this is not the normal time for these things, but I grew up in a family that fled a revolution in Iran due to religious issues in the country. I came to this place. I was born here. I'd never been religious. Nobody in my family was religious. And there were many years where I would vocally say, I don't believe in God. This is not a real thing. And I'm not kidding. And this is going to sound very weird, but on December 3rd, 2018, God found me. And because I realized there were so many things in my life I was trying to do that I just couldn't do. And then one day they all happened at the same time. And I realized I tried for years to do these things and I couldn't, and I didn't do anything different today, but today they happened. So it's just this belief in this ability of having some sort of blind faith. I don't worry about a lot of things anymore. I just know that what happens, happens. I can control what I can control. And that is how I treat you. Am I looking at you in the eye when I speak with you? Am I listening to you when I talk to you? Am I considering people? This is my lens change. And fortunately, it's one of those things that once you see something, you can never unsee it. Usually that's kind of talked about in a way of like when you're relating that to gross things, like, well, I saw that, I can't unsee it.
Right.
But the positive side of that is once you see something and you're capable, you can never live with yourself for a second not doing it, right? So for me, it's been just this sense of blind faith, and I've been so fortunate to have, which I know is a big no-no. It's like, don't talk about religion, don't talk about God, don't talk about politics, don't talk about, I get it, but I'm me. Listen, you like me, like me. I'll like myself.
You just talk about having faith, and we can appreciate that. So
right.
We just want to first say thank you very much for spending a good hour and a half of your time with us. We love your perspective and just how you're honest and vulnerable with us. We love having you as part of our advisory board as well. So thank you. We'll let you kind of leave us commencement, like a lot of people, like Obama's doing like this commencement address next weekend. If you were going to speak and maybe give a 30-45 seconds to people who are graduating this year from Fullerton, both in EHM and outside EHM, what are some words of advice you would say, and kind of just take us home with that?
I would say that you guys, for the first time in your life, the college, labor force that's going into the market is at the same level of everybody that's in the market, which is uncertainty. So make it your best friend. Find a way to make it happen. One of the things, and I'll relate to Steve Jobs' Stanford commencement speech, was you cannot connect the dots moving forward. You can only connect the dots moving backwards. So if you do what you love enough, at some point, even if they don't make sense, know that you'll be able to look back. My career, if you look at my resume, it shows 3 years at SB at the height of their growth when they first launched. It shows 3 years at Gensler, the largest architecture and design firm in the world. It shows 3 years at Dream Hotel Group after they launched some of the coolest hotels in the United States. And now it shows as an executive role at SBE. None of this was planned. This on accident looks like it was planned. So now looking backwards, I'm able to connect the dots and make sense of it. But be friends with uncertainty. Know that whatever is giving you fear in your life is going to go away. Nothing that bothered me yesterday is still bothering me today. So you might as well, when it's yesterday, find a way to remove it from your head, be clear, and move forward. And the truth is, leverage your resources. It's the one thing I've been able to do better than a lot of my peers is leverage resources. And you guys have resources. You have the professors, you have the campus, you have each other, you have your families, you have me, you have the board of advisory, the advisory board. Leverage your resources. Every day you think to call me and then decide, oh no, I don't want to. You've lost that day forever. It'll never come back. So just seize the day, really.
All right. Well, you preach it to us on a Friday. We thank you very much. Happy early birthday. Make sure you celebrate safely.
Thank you.
And we will see you very soon. But thanks again.
Thank you guys so much. It's a pleasure being here.
All right.
Enjoy your
care.
weekends. All
You
right,
too.
guys.